Good day to Dr. Jing and friends from the MPW module. I am Avtar, and together with my teammates Janice, Fendi, Kenneth, and Joe, we will share our findings on our chosen company, Ichor Systems Singapore Private Limited. We will be elaborating on the HR challenges they face due to the pandemic, both from an internal as well as an external angle. 2, how they overcame them, and 3, what our group thinks they could have done better. Now, just a little background on Ichor Systems. Ichor is a US-based company that operates in the semiconductor industry with branches all over the world. Specifically, they are in the business of fluid delivery subsystems used in the semiconductor industry. The subject of our interview is Ms. Maureen Ng. Ms. Ng is a human resources professional with years of working experience in various HR fields. She is currently employed with Ichor Systems as the Asia HR Director. Prior to this, she was the HR Director for UTC Aerospace Systems, and before that, she was the Regional HR Solutions Lead for Southeast Asia with Johnson's Control. On that note, I will hand over to my teammate Janice, who will present our findings in the area of talent acquisition. Over to you, Janice.
Thank you, Aftar. Hello, everyone. I'm Janice. In the area of talent acquisitions, I call phase 2 internal challenge. First, conduct an interview. 2, onboarding of the new staff. On the first matters, the biggest change in the conduct of interview was that it has been changed from the traditional face-to-face to now being conducted virtually. ICO could not see the full body language of the interviewees and had to deal with distractions such as a noisy background and internet lag or disconnections. To overcome this, ICO just accepted these changes as the new norm and cater Barford's time for the conduct of interviews. On the second matters, with regards to the onboarding new staff, the main challenge was to observe self-distance measures that was in place. ICO had a tradition of hosting mass networking breakfasts for a new staff and the upper management. This has to call indefinitely and was replaced with a virtual conference call that was dovetailed with the senior management weekly huddles. On a small note, extra efforts was also required to split a large group into a smaller group, take temperatures, etc. etc. Next, I will move to the external challenges were faced by ICOR. First, limited access to foreign talents. 2, having a talent pool avoiding organizations that only subscribe work on site. On the first matter, ICOR employed a significant number of foreign talents. During the pandemic, Singapore instituted a lockdown where our borders were closed indefinitely to new or short-term visits. Many ICOR foreign talents returned to their home countries and they had troubles to secure suitable foreign talent replacement, and this slowed down their productions. When the lockdown was eased, ICOR could start hiring it again, but have to fork out additional costs to cover the mandatory of 2 weeks quarantines, and found themselves having to reassure interviewees that Singapore had the pandemic situations under control and it was relatively safe to be here. On the second matters, towards the end of pandemics, it became clear that many of the foreign talents had gotten to use for working from home or remotely, and interviewees were turning down ICOR's offers to take up lower paying jobs that did not require them to be on site. Fortunately for ICO, the long pandemic had allowed them to adjust their corporation's process and adjust it to the new norm of working from home and still deliver products at the pre-pandemic levels. Thus, ICO had regained some level of priorities with foreign talents. In the context of what ICO have done better, our group felt that they could have looked inwards towards upskilling their existing staff and then promoting to take up the appointments that have been left vacant by the foreign talents. There are benefits to adopting to this approach. Internal referrals are statistically more likely to be a better job match as their reputations and leadership skills have been already established, and indirectly this could also have reduced ICO recruitment budgets. On that note, I conclude and hand over to my teammate Fendi, who will elaborate on the next point of performance management. Thank you, and hand over to you, Fendi.
Thank you, Janice. Hello, everyone. Fendi here. In the area of performance management, ICOR faced internal challenges for 1, staff feedback, and 2, performance appraisal. On the first matter, before the pandemic, when HR received feedback from staff, it was a simple matter of just walking down to the affected department to establish the facts and resolve the issue. With the pandemic, ICOR instituted a business continuity plan, and this meant that there was a mix of staff working on-site or remotely, meaning not all teams were in the office at any given time. This slowed down how quickly an issue could be resolved, and there was a risk that an issue might be overlooked as it got handed over between different HR teams. Fortunately, staff feedback was an infrequent matter. And to manage staff expectations, HR would upfront inform staff of their challenge and to expect longer time for them to get back. On the second matter of performance appraisal, as the lockdown lengthened in 2020, it became clear to the HR team that the year-end appraisal discussion of who achieved what would be redundant since the work goals set at the beginning of the year were not achieved and thus rendered absolute. It also did not make sense to set new targets to the evolving situation then. Ichor's HR department led a discussion with other sister departments and collectively they concluded that their appraisal system need to be redesigned to be more responsive and adaptive to the new world, new skill brought by the pandemic. Next, I will move on to external challenges, where Ichor faced challenges in one, alignment with CEP system and having limited access to foreign talent, and the adoption of performance management software. On the first matter, sometime in mid-20, the Singapore government announced they will be revising the current estimated potential of the CEP system that was used to manage the performance and career advancement of the civil service. Ichor's leadership reflected on this announcement during a retreat and came back to the consensus that leadership material in staff was more than just exceeding expectation and meeting deadlines. As shared previously, the appraisal format was revised to reflect the changing trends. On the second matter of performance management software, as pandemic progressed, studies were published that supported the idea that frequent short-term feedback and goal setting proved more effective as an appraisal system in the new pandemic world than the traditional annual staff appraisal that many organizations, including Ichor, had adopted. However, adopting a frequent short-term appraisal system would be administratively more laborious on managers. Ichor will go on to trial several performance management software that automated this process and facilitated meaningful appraisal between managers and staff. In the context of what could Ichor have done better, our group felt that they could have incorporated a staff reward program in tandem with their adopted performance management software. To illustrate this point, let us imagine employees earning digital or virtual badges whenever they met goals or completed courses, and then peers and other managers could also see these badges and thereby know that the badge holder are strong performers for specific duties or assignment. These badges will create an environment of healthy competition and could also be exchanged for rewards such as latest iPhone or shopping voucher. On that note, I conclude and hand over to my teammate Kenneth, who will elaborate on the next point on learning and development. Thank you. Over to you, Kenneth.
Thank you, Fendi. Hello, everyone. Kenneth here. In the area of learning and development, Ichor faced internal challenges like number one, identifying and grooming deserving staff for higher appointments, and number two, the attendance of mandatory in-house training. On the first matter, as observation opportunities provided by traditional on-site training were scarce due to COVID, Ichor found it challenging to identify better working staff or better performing staff for mentorship, career progression, and succession planning. Ichor appreciate that without sufficient data points to assess staff performance, there's a risk of selecting an undeserving staff or creating unintended unhappiness within the teams. So to some extent, this risk was mitigated by adopting performance management software to collect all the data points from multiple sources like peers, customers, underlings. To further avoid this pitfall, managers sought out to engage their employees individually across virtual platforms to note their feedback on their peers, those who are working hard and those who are not. The next matter is attending the mandatory in-house training, which is traditionally conducted face-to-face and thus come to a standstill due to COVID. For such operations to resume safely, face-to-face refresher training had to be replaced with digital alternatives because Ichor have no such specialty in this area, so outsourcing these services is required. But due to the restriction of movement, it was not tenable. Ichor thus had to spend considerable in-house resources to provide content and e-modules to enable digital training. Next, I will move on to the external challenges. On the first matter, similar to mandatory in-house training shared earlier, Ichor staff were expected to attend mandatory external qualifications. Because pre-pandemic, Ichor preferred enrolling into a certain agency due to their price or professional conduct. But as these preferred agencies were slowed down, they were offered virtual conduct for their qualifications. And as a result, Ichor had to resort to doing business with other agencies who offer similar virtual services, and some of these agencies were maybe their second or third option. On the second external challenges was the Singaporean government provided a range of economic relief to cushion the blow of the pandemic for businesses and workers. These packages provided employees with incentives such as absentee payroll subsidies to defray the salary costs of staff undergoing upskill or reskilling training for crucial for business recovery. Naturally, Ichor welcomed these packages and HR busied themselves organizing Ichor's workforce to qualify for all available subsidies to stagger them to attend this training without compromising Ichor's business outflow. In the context of what Ichor should have done better, our group have learned that the area of creating in-house content and e-modules, decentralized approach was adopted. This meant that various departments who were left with their own devices to produce content. As you can imagine, the standard of the finished product were contingent to the expertise level of the department, and not all departments had staff for such skill to produce digital content. We thought Ichor should have identified a dedicated team who could provide the final vetting, editing, and polishing of the produced content. This would result in a standardized final product across all departments and would be more effective and efficient for everybody, time and resources. On that note, I'll conclude and hand over to my team, Joe, who will elaborate on the next point on employee engagement retention. Thank you. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Kenneth. Hello, everyone. Joe here. In the area of employee engagement and retention, Ichor faced internal challenges for first, staff financial well-being, and second, the continued adoption of hybrid work arrangement. On the first matter, when the lockdown duration kept extending, it became clear that Ichor could not sustain paying full salary to their staff. Even though they did not know how long it would take before the fortune turned around, Ichor top management resolved to retain their people by cutting salary instead of retrenching them, at least for the foreseeable futures. Their genuine motivation was the welfare of the employee, but it also cannot be denied that by doing so, they would hold on to their many talents. Unknown to them, this decision could benefit them during the Great Resignation, where most of the staff remained loyal to Ichor because they felt the company really cared for them and not just the bottom line. On the second matter of adopting hybrid work arrangement, Ichor notes through various surveys and publications that the hybrid model encourages work-life balance and enhances employee productivities. Going back to full on-site work exposed the risk of losing the employee and additional replacement costs, including new hiring and training. When the Singapore government announced return to full on-site work, Ichor followed suit against the advice of the HR department, as they were worried they would lose out to their competitors. However, this announcement was not well received with the employee and prompted them to follow up with a face-saving announcement, letting each department decide for themselves what kind of work model they prefer to adopt. Next, I'll move on to external challenges, where Ichor faced challenges in first, competition from COVID-related industry, and second, comparison to companies offering work-from-home remunerations. On the first matter, Ichor lost most of their staff when their staff decided to return to their home country for goods, or when they resigned from Ichor and joined jobs that were created by the pandemic, such as safe distancing ambassadors and swappers that were paying full salary. The later group of resignees were mostly from their lower paid staff. Ichor accept that this group did not really have a choice as they have financial obligation to meet. On a positive note, the lower wages staff were not specialized, and the departure was in a way a welcome relief as it allowed for Ichor financial reserves to sustain the remaining staff for a longer duration. On the second matters, as work from home become a norm, Ichor staff start making comparison to company that was offering staff allowance to work from home or subsidies to purchase IT equipment. Ichor conduct an internal study and note that they were making some savings. For example, in electrical consumption, each time their staff worked remotely, the savings were comparable to the remuneration other companies were offering their staff to work from home. Ichor then proceed to adopt a similar allowance scheme for appointment where it was justified. In the context of what could Ichor have done better, our group note that the lack of human interaction brought about by the pandemic gave rise to negative psychological experience. To overcome this, Ichor could leverage existing technology such as WhatsApp chat group and virtual meeting platform like Zoom to establish official lines of communication between HR and Ichor staff. Through this media, HR could share inspiring message, broadcasting uplifting sessions such as Tech Talk, organizing Zumba section, virtual games or tea parties, especially during the midweek, to break the monotony of work from home. Also, Ichor could have explored delivering care package services such as mooncake during the Mid-Autumn Festival or handwritten birthday cards from upper management to show appreciation. Mentally happy staff are more productive and this translates to increased customer satisfaction. On that note, I conclude and hand over to my teammate Atta, who will bring this presentation to a closure. Thank you. Over to you, Atta.
Thank you, Joe. To conclude, pandemics such as COVID-19 are essentially humanitarian crises with considerable HR implications as far as the global economy is concerned. And naturally, this puts a spotlight on HR practitioners. The pandemic rendered many of the prevailing HR notions irrelevant. Compared to COVID-19, the impact of the previous pandemics were not as lengthy or had as far-reaching consequences. Thus, the HR solutions developed from them were insufficient to serve as references for COVID-19. HR practitioners like the Ichor team were compelled to think out of the box and implement original as well as creative solutions customized to their organizational unique circumstances. Through our report, we can genuinely appreciate how critical HR teams can be for their organizations. HR teams can be the deal breaker in a crisis, and our takeaway is that the significance of a well-resourced and effective HR team is undeniable. Thank you.